So you know about SurveyMonkey, don't you? That massive big online survey tool that enables you to capture information via an online survey. They'll analyse it for you on their dashboard, so then you can make business decisions from it. You might have used it from an enterprise point of view, or even as a business owner, a marketeer, or even a market researcher. You might have used it once, you might have used it twice, but you might also be using it every year to conduct your market research, customer feedback, or even your employee research. What you might not have known though is that they've gone through a massive big rebrand. And I've been really lucky now to talk to Karen about that rebrand and what it means to the company, which is now called Momentive. I hope you enjoy, and please leave a comment in the comment box below if you find it interesting, or if you've got any other comments and questions for Momentive. Thanks for joining me today then, Karen. So obviously I know quite a bit about your background at Momentive AI and sort of SurveyMonkey, but for the people who may not know you too well, why don't you give a bit of an introduction about yourself in case I miss anything from your bio, which will put me in a bit of trouble.
Sure. Hi, I'm so glad to be here, Jake. Thanks for having me. My name's Karen Budell. I'm currently the Vice President of Brand Marketing at Momentive. We are the makers of SurveyMonkey and Get Feedback. So really excited to be here and talk a little bit about that transformation from our corporate brand of SurveyMonkey to Momentive. Prior to joining Momentive, I was at Google and YouTube for around 4 years. On the enterprise platform side, I worked very closely with the ads portfolio rebrand team, where we brought Google Analytics 360 Suite and DoubleClick together to launch Google Marketing Platform. And my last year was on the YouTube ads marketing side. So really selling the value of that highly engaged global audience to brands and agencies and advertisers. I've been spending the last seven or so years in the enterprise B2B tech space. Prior to that, I was at a content marketing agency in Chicago, which is my hometown. We did custom publishing and digital content marketing strategies for B2C and B2B brands. And then I actually started my career in journalism at the Chicago Tribune Company, the storied Tribune Tower on Michigan Avenue. Started on the editorial side as a journalist. I was covering the police beat for the city of Chicago for our 24/7 365 wire service. Then went on to cover the entertainment scene. And while I was working there, I went back to grad school to get my MBA, and I started transitioning into marketing roles, many of which had consumer insights and research baked into the purview so that could guide our strategy.
Definitely. And do you actually think that you've maybe taken any of your journalism skills into your roles today, or your previous sort of roles that you mentioned at all?
100%.
There's a lot of similarities, isn't there, between maybe some of the skills what you've learned from journalism and now into your roles today?
Yeah, it's definitely informed a lot of the way that I've approached my career and different skill sets that I've carried forward, especially having worked on the breaking news beat. You have to learn how to ask questions, to keep digging in, to uncover the story. You need to get multiple sides of the story. You have to piece it together. So being driven by that curiosity has really been helpful to my career as a marketer and brand storyteller, and just being able to be kind of quick on your feet. And in the news world, you have to react, right? You might have those proactive stories simmering in the background, but you also have to be ready to act quickly. So that, I think, has certainly served me well over the course of my career.
Definitely. And I know sort of curiosity was one of sort of SurveyMonkey's sort of slogans, or how it sort of pitched itself to organisations and individuals. And I know that you've gone through quite a transformation from a brand perspective. Could you maybe give a bit of an overview of what's happened at SurveyMonkey, and all in relation to that sort of new positioning within the market?
Absolutely. So I joined the company in January of 2020. when it was called SurveyMonkey. We all know what happened in March of 2020. The world shifted. We weren't really prepared for anything that was going to be thrown at us over the past 18 months or so. But when I joined, we were at a point in the company history where we were really pushing up market. We had just made 2 acquisitions in 2019. We acquired 2 CX products, Usabilla in Amsterdam and Get Feedback based in San Francisco. So we were at this point where we had to evaluate our portfolio, our brand architecture, figure out what our path forward was, and we had already started to see a few signals through customer feedback, conversations from our sales team, where the name SurveyMonkey was presenting a few challenges when we wanted to sell the breadth of our enterprise solutions. And so that really led us down this path of a 14-month research journey where we had to ask ourselves some tough questions about, what is it? Is it the name? Is it the brand? Because SurveyMonkey as a brand has incredibly high aided and unaided brand awareness. It's just mind-boggling, which is why I was so excited to work at a company with that brand awareness and a beloved brand. Mm-hmm. But as much as that brand is beloved and it's still our core flagship product, was that the name that was going to serve the company well for this next 20 years of our chapter as we push further into the enterprise space. So we did the research, we embarked on a strategic journey, a creative journey. We had to make a lot of decisions along the way. And then in June of 2021, just over 90 days ago, we reintroduced ourselves to the world as Momentive, an agile experience management company, and the makers of SurveyMonkey and Get Feedback.
And it was I wasn't really expecting it, and maybe not many other people were expecting that sort of change. Were there any sort of surprises when you were going through those changes, or when you were going through the research that you thought, I wasn't really expecting that feedback, or from an internal sort of stakeholder perspective, was there anything that you just had to sort of change your strategy or sort of think about maybe a little bit more than what you were expecting?
Surprises. I mean, sure, there were plenty of surprises along the way. I would say one of the surprises that bolstered our decision and direction to move forward was in the customer and user testing that we did. We heard from very senior decision makers at an enterprise company say, we can't use SurveyMonkey. And it was just a perception of the brand and the name within the enterprise space that they didn't, there was some skepticism about the robustness of our technology. Yeah. And so that was a surprise. We also had some surprises, as a company 22 years old, we have both new employees that joined a couple of weeks ago, and we've got employees that have been at the company for over 10 years. Yeah. So what was going to be the reaction of those employees that have really kind of created their career identity around SurveyMonkey? How would they take that change? It's a bit of an emotional change if that's how you identify. And we saw employees on both ends of the spectrum, but we used research under the guise of an employer brand survey during the course of this highly confidential work stream. We asked our employee base a series of questions about what was it that they loved about the brand, the company, the culture, and really tried to use those insights to shape our strategy. And what we found was it was our culture and the people of the company that really created the magic of who we were. And that was not anything that we wanted to change. We could change the name on the building, but we wanted to make sure that we brought that goodness forward. We're still here to power the curious so they can shape what's next. But we also found out that, some folks were really, really attached to the name. And it took them a while to get used to the change. So we had surprises on both ends of the spectrums, but overwhelmingly the feedback from our customers, from our employees, our key stakeholders has been a lot of, yeah, that makes sense. I totally get it. You can still have SurveyMonkey as your core product, and then Momentive is the name of your company and your enterprise solutions.
Definitely. And obviously this was sort of during that sort of pandemic, which we won't go into at all, and I'm sure a lot of the teams working on this were possibly still remote working and joining loads and loads of remote calls to work out what that plan was. What sort of behind the scenes, what sort of teams were working on this sort of project to bring it all together for what we see online today as Momentive?
Yeah, well, after I joined the company, I maybe had about 9 or 10 weeks where I was lucky enough to meet some of my team and partners in person. But in March of 2020, we went into work from home mode, and we're still in that mode as we reimagine how we return to the office. But we had a very, very small core team to start when we embarked on the research journey. So it was myself, our CMO, my immediate team of brand leads, our creative director, our brand research lead, our head of brand strategy. And it was that core group that really started work on the research. We conducted over 10 different studies across 7 countries, gathering over 22,000 respondents' input to shape this journey.
Amazing.
But as we moved forward, it became clear we needed, some outside help, just to get that outside perspective. So we brought in an agency partner to work with us on the naming and the strategy, and then we had to keep this highly, highly confidential, as you can imagine, because the first part of the journey was just exploratory and should we or shouldn't we. But in the beginning of 2021, when we knew the direction that we were going to take, we had to start adding to that core project team. And so it slowly grew over time. And we started bringing in partners from the product team, product and product design, because we knew that we wanted our market research solutions to also carry forth the Momentive brand experience. We had our partners from sales, from engineering. And as this grew, we got closer to launch. The thing that made it more real was we had to extend into all functions of the business. HR and our people partners were highly involved because this was going to have an impact on every touch point. In fact, our email addresses have now changed to our momentive.ai domain. We had to work with our friends in IT. All of the different business systems and applications that we engage on a daily basis would have to go through change. A company name change for a public company also involves a lot of legal and tax implications. So I met a lot of my friends in that part of the business. We had to change our ticker symbol on the NASDAQ to now MNTV. So, you can imagine how that very confidential core group started to expand. Yeah. It was still a fairly small team in the end, maybe a couple of hundred employees overall. And then we shared the news right before it went public with the entire company. But it was challenging, as you mentioned, because we were all going through the pandemic and whatever personal challenges were happening on the other side of a Zoom screen. But I am just really so amazed and grateful for how resilient our teams were, how collaborative our partners were, both internally across functions and with our agency partners. And we just all kind of came together to the table and recognized this was a big opportunity and a big decision. So, let's do it together. And personally, Jake, I think it's the thing that kept me going through some big challenges over the past year and a half. I was evacuated from my home for a wildfire in California. I had a terrible mountain bike accident that resulted in 2 surgeries. So I share that as we're sharing more and more these days with people. Like, I had a lot going on, but this and the resiliency and the partnership from the people at Momentive is what kept me going and kept me excited about the future and what's next.
Sorry to hear that. Hope you're feeling better
fully
as well.
recovered now. Lots of occupational therapy, but I'm good.
Good. Great. And is the obviously culture's a main thing from what you found when you started at Momentive SurveyMonkey. It's all about a lot about the people and the people working at the organisation. Has the same sort of culture stuck with the company, even though it's gone through that sort of rebrand? It's still got the same sort of underpinning and the same individuals behind the scenes working on the product and working on
Yeah,
the different
absolutely.
accounts.
And I think that blend of people and technology, that's one of the things that became so clear as a differentiator for us through the research. We were winning business because of the people that were engaging with prospects and customers. So we wanted to bake that into the brand identity, but we also knew we wanted to keep the magic of our culture consistent in this next chapter. So oftentimes we associate the culture of a company with that physical presence, but I think the last 18 months have taught all of us how to rethink that. And our internal events and communications team have done a phenomenal job of keeping our global employee base highly engaged and informed and connected. We've been doing virtual concerts where people get to showcase their talents. We've had some fantastic guest speakers come in to the teams. So we've definitely maintained that culture of curiosity and collaboration. Our focus on equality has really been so beautiful to see us not only have it part of our values as it has been for the past several years, but that we are leaning in and taking diversity, equity, and inclusion seriously from the very top of our organization to our CEO, in bringing on our first Chief Diversity and Social Impact Officer, to having programs, trainings, initiatives, and more importantly, solutions and products that we're bringing to the market to help companies address equity in the workplace. So there is so much goodness about the Momentive culture, and that still nods back to our rich heritage when the company was known as SurveyMonkey. And so I'm glad that we were able to keep that. I'm glad that we were able to showcase the beauty of the blend of people and technology in our new brand as well. And so you'll see a lot of our customers, or what we like to call reshapers, featured on our website.
Great. And for those sort of reshape, and when you're sort of communicating to those reshapers, and when you went out to thousands of people to understand, actually, is this a good idea to rebrand the organization and to create Momentive? Was that where you were using sort of your own sort of agile market research tools to actually go out there and conduct the research?
Yes, absolutely. So we used a blend of qualitative and quantitative studies throughout our research journey. And when it came down to testing the names in particular, we started out with over 1,000 names in ideation that were ultimately whittled down to around 50 or so that we brought to our executive team for discussion and debate. And then that further whittled it down to the top 10 that we put into a monadic design study, so that we had over 2,000 respondents. Each respondent only saw one name. And we asked them a series of questions. What associations does this bring up? How easy is it to pronounce? What attributes might you assign to it? And then we did a concept reveal. How well does the name fit the concept? So we used our own solution to run that study and get the insights, which was really amazing to see. One of our data viz outputs from that was a spectrum of different attributes, and we plotted out all 10 of the names to see where they would cluster. So we had all that data coming together, and we used our own tool as well to reach out to our employee base and get those insights I mentioned earlier with the employee study. It was incredibly helpful to have all that data. What started to emerge was Momentive was winning across the board in some of those naming studies, but we often talk about making decisions with data and gut. It really had to be a blend of the art and science for this decision, because we wanted to make sure that the name, gave us flexibility for the future, gave us a big, expansive, creative canvas to tell stories upon. And so when we had the last, 3 to 5 names, we did some sort of creative explorations. So yes, we used our solutions. We also used some other mechanisms to really feel good about the direction we chose with Momentive.
And then take days and days with coffee and wine to actually decide on the top name out of the top 5, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was a journey. That was the longest part of the creative journey, because as you can probably imagine, that's one of the biggest decisions in a rebrand and relaunch of a company, positioning of this magnitude. So yeah, it was. We certainly did not take that decision lightly.
Good. And if you could sort of break down the actual logo itself, so what we see on sort of social media and on your website, and actually what, from a brand perspective, Momentum means for to the outside world, how would you sort of describe the logo and some of the reasons why you picked Momentive in comparison maybe to some of the other sort of top five names that were in the hat?
Sure. Well, Momentive is a word coined from momentum, movement. It really had a lot of that forward moving energy, that feeling to it. And in some of the open-ended feedback from the name testing, people described it as having that aha when you're doing research, and you're trying to create momentum internally when you highlight insights. So Momentive really seemed to encapsulate that. And as far as the logo and the story behind the interlocking shapes, as I mentioned earlier, being able to highlight the intersection of people and technology and how critical it is, to have the insights from technology, but know that people ultimately are going to make the call at the end of the day. That quarter circle of yellow really represents humanity. And the triangle in blue up and to the right is the technology piece. They come together. That center slice we call heritage green, which is a nod to the green color that has been really recognizable and associated with the SurveyMonkey brand. It's a different shade of green, but we knew that it helped us stand out in the landscape of enterprise blues, which you so often see in logos. And so we didn't want to give up that differentiation. But I do really love the way that the shapes come together. The shaping what's next is really about what we're trying to enable people to do, by using insights and agile research. So it does tell a story, and as the shapes come together or as we play with them in separately, it really gives us a lot of flexibility with the brand identity and visual system.
Definitely. And you sort of mentioned that this is part of a journey for Momentive, and you've gone through a lot of different change internally to obviously help from HR to billing, I would have thought, to internal teams, to the wider company. Is there anything else now you need to do from a rebrand perspective, and are there maybe any challenges that you may need to overcome in the future just due to the sheer volume of that?
Yeah,
rebrand?
that is a great question. When we relaunched in June as Momentive, that was just the first day of this next chapter. We are only just getting started, so the hard work is now. It's not over. We're still continuing to work on rebranding all of the assets and touch points across. From a product perspective, there's more work and innovation going to extend that brand experience in product and really flesh that out. We're continuing to build out our website at momentive.ai. We're launching new content features in the coming weeks, so I'm really excited about that. We want to be able to showcase all the fantastic research that our teams are doing on that new site. So a lot of work going on there. And then, there's with a change of this magnitude, as I mentioned, there's change management. So we have to make sure that our teams, both internally, sales, frontline employees, and partners, are enabled to tell the Momentive story and understand how to paint that picture. It's tricky. We're doing it all remotely, as we mentioned, and there's a lot of history in 2020. In 22 years as a company, so we're still working to make some of those transitions across the different touch points. But I'm really excited about the progress the team's been making over the last couple of months, and we've got some great events coming up later this year that will be another opportunity to showcase all of our innovation and what we've done since rebrand.
You mentioned sort of doing a lot of it, like you say, online. and you don't see actually many companies have actually gone through a rebrand or remote or during the pandemic. What was the highlight or the challenge of doing a whole company rebrand online, especially as you weren't brand new to the company, but you were fairly new still to SurveyMonkey and Momentive when you joined?
Yeah, I've been part of many rebrands before, and what you typically get to do in the process is create some type of tactile experience, bring in, printouts or artifacts, um, different demonstrations and illustrations of the brand and the identity, and have your executives and partners walk around and immerse themselves in this new brand identity. To have to, you know, craft this new brand on Zoom or on just a screen when you don't have anyone in the room with you was a big challenge. But I will say one of the things that really helped us create buy-in, create understanding with our employees as we started to tell the story internally was we spent time creating what we call a sizzle reel. So we wanted to introduce new elements of the brand identity, the look and feel, the colors, the tone and voice, and some of the language through the magic of sight, sound, and motion. And then at the end of this 60 or 90-second clip, it says, "We are Momentive." And we sort of did a name reveal at the end of it. And that little sizzle reel, I loved watching the reactions in chat or live as people's faces reacted. It really helped create a little bit more of that magic, that sense of belonging and excitement. It gave people chills. I probably watched it over 1,000 times myself, and I still love hearing the music and build to this crescendo of the name reveal. So I share that because anyone else that is contemplating a rebrand, whether it's at the corporate level or a product line, don't underestimate the importance and the value of bringing your employees along on the journey with you and investing in that internal communications and some type of, artifact, video, what have you, to tell your story and get people to believe.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's an old saying which is still true around that if your employees are happy, then your customers will be even more happy afterwards, because everyone's happy within your organization, aren't they?
And on that point, actually, so the customers that that we have featured on our website right now, I had the privilege of meeting with them as we were doing these photo shoots, meeting with them remotely, I should say. But under confidentiality, I got to share with each one of them. So the photo shoot you're on is for our corporate website, but it's going to be under a new name and brand. And I showed them that same video and reveal of our new name. And that was yet another point of validation in this journey to see customers who have, using products across our portfolio, who've been using our insights surfaced from our technology to make big decisions about digital transformation, employee experience, or overhauling a customer experience. It was wonderful to see their reaction, how they highlighted the attention to bringing people and technology together, how we're focused on highlighting and amplifying different voices and diversity. So it was really, that was another magic moment, I would say, on this journey is seeing their reaction and them also feeling excited to be part of the transformation journey.
Definitely, you see all the hard work that's been put in, and then you get the sort of that return on investment of all the hours and the minutes that you've been putting together as a team to form the new brand and the corporate brand. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Karen. It's been an absolute privilege to speak with you today, to talk about Momentive and the actual whole rebrand, which I didn't even know the ins and outs of the rebrand. So it's been really interesting.
Thanks so much for having me, Jake. It was great speaking with you as well. Bye.
Thanks, Karen.